So now please join me now in welcoming Nefa-Tari Moore to give her presentation. She is a uterine cancer survivor, activist, and patient advocate from the United States.
For having me here. I'm not going to stand up on the podium because you won't see me. So yes, today I'm going to talk about, my survivorship of, being a 2-time uterine cancer survivor and as well as surviving ovarian cancer, and also, the quality of life, that I've had, during my diagnosis and up till, how I'm doing today. I'm going to start off by saying I was, first diagnosed in 2013 at the age of 33 with uterine cancer. When I was found out about my diagnosis, I just was like, devastated. I couldn't believe, that this was, how I refer to it then, is that this was happening to me. It was scary. I was, also in isolation. I didn't tell very many people, about my diagnosis. I had many questions. I thought I was going to lose my life when I first found out, about the diagnosis. And there was really no one that I felt at the time that I could, talk about the fact of me not, surviving the diagnosis. What, as doctors wanted to do was to treat the diagnosis. And so I took these 16 pills a day at first. It was a progesterone. And just, coming from, I was a fairly healthy person before my diagnosis, so I wasn't on any medication. So to go from not being on any type of medication to taking 16 pills a day was, very, added to the stress level and the devastation of the diagnosis. I experienced a lot of side effects from the medication, and I didn't really, again, I didn't feel open enough, have that communication, open communication with my oncologist at the time to talk about some of the side effects that I was going through. I was really suffering, internally, more so emotionally than I believe than the actual cancer. That's the way I felt. At the time, I was working in the healthcare field in nursing. I was a nurse, and most people that I know today who have been diagnosed with endometrial cancer have never, met another person, or when you're told about it, even if, in my case, it's working in the healthcare field, I'm like, endometrial cancer, what is that? And so I didn't really know enough at the time. At least I didn't my mind wasn't there about what this cancer was and what it was doing to me inside. So at some point, I'm a very, heavily into my faith. So at some point, I started relying, I wasn't as, practicing as much as I should have my faith. But this diagnosis, that's what it did for me. It gave me, the strength to go back and to practice my faith, which I feel is what got me through along the way with all of the side effects and, thinking, was I going to live or not? And so I completed treatment after 9 months, and then that was all. It was just like, okay, you're done, the cancer, there's no more cancer, and, we'll see you for your next follow-up care appointment in a few months. And, so then I started asking questions because I started really getting, upset, annoyed by the fact that there wasn't any other conversation and room to ask questions, and even, as for the future of my life. So at the time, yeah, I did start asking questions, and the more I learned about my diagnosis, the more I became empowered. And so there wasn't, at that time in 2013, I couldn't find any support groups or anything like that for endometrial cancer. And as I said, I had never met another person with that diagnosis. So I tried to go on living my life, but it was very difficult. I always thought about whether the cancer would come back, and it did. I was in surveillance. I had every 3 months a biopsy, and during my third biopsy, they found that I had a recurrence of uterine cancer, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this thing is happening again. I can't get away from, this diagnosis. And so at 35, I had a hysterectomy. I didn't have any children. I got married, which I didn't say, 5 months prior to receiving my first diagnosis, I had got married, and so we had plans to have children. We had planned on having children, but of course that, didn't happen. And so as I said, at the age of 35, I was diagnosed again, and so I had to have a hysterectomy. So then now I'm thinking to myself, okay, so now this takes away my chances of having children. And again, once again, that feeling of, am I going to live, through this? I have so much planned for my life, so many goals. I want to be here for my family and my friends, the people that are closest to me. And then at that point, I started opening up more about my diagnosis, talking about it more to my family and friends and other people that I know that were, diagnosed. So that gave me another, feeling of empowerment. And so I continued on with surveillance. My first oncologist, it wasn't working. We were not, wasn't a good match. And so, in fact, she had left the practice without telling me, so that meant I had to find a new oncologist. And so I continued to be in surveillance. I would always get to the point where I would go to every 3 months, and right before I would, get to the 6-month mark of surveillance, I would have a new diagnosis. So in 2018, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and it was found through routine checkup. Again, this was happening to me like every 2 years almost, and each time I started to feel, really good, like myself, this would happen. I started trying to live my life. Once again, boom, here comes a new diagnosis. But at that point, when I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, again, the isolation kind of felt, I started to feel that again. I couldn't relate to, my peers and things like that because they didn't, they weren't going through the stuff that I was going through. Well, it turns out with the new oncologist, I started, being able to, if there was better communication and for me, better care. And she strongly encouraged, me to, get support in terms of a support group. And so that's how, I got involved with SHARE and the support group, whatever ovarian cancer support group, facilitated, headed by Andrea Hertzberg, who's here today. And I, really consider her a huge part of my survivorship, along with, the support group members and SHARE as a whole. I want to say today, just to go back a little bit, I went through 6 rounds of chemotherapy and also did genetic testing, which, I did come back with a mutation called Lynch syndrome. So it kind of made sense of why I continued to be diagnosed. And so I kind of felt relief a bit. I know it sounds weird, but I felt a relief that, now, that I had Lynch syndrome and that it was an answer for me. Today, I am facilitating several support groups for women diagnosed with the uterine and uterine cancer, and a young women's, I co-facilitated young women's support group for women diagnosed with GYN cancers such as ovarian, uterine, and cervical. I would say today I feel like I have a good quality of life. I'm living my life. I have when I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, I said, I was determined to live, to get through it. And so I kind of like set goals for myself of, for when it was all over, for when I survived, because I just knew I would at that point. It's like 3 times already. And so today, one of the goals I set for myself was I wanted to, being that I couldn't have, my own biological children, I wanted to foster, and adopt, or foster to adopt. And today I am, in the process of, fostering and adopting a baby boy. I've had him since he was 9 days old. He's now almost 6 months old. And that's, the new joy to my life. I just want to, get the message out that, there is, life, there can be a happy life after cancer. And I want to, continue to support women going through it, and and to continue to have a good quality of life. I am in surveillance, still 6 months. Most likely, I've been told by my doctor, most women, after 5 years or so, they, are, released, so to speak, from surveillance. But I've been told that I'll always be in surveillance for the rest of my life due to the multiple diagnoses that I've had and the fact that I have Lynch syndrome. I'm okay with that, because then that lets me know that, if I were to be diagnosed again, recurrence or a new cancer, hopefully it will be caught early, and there are things that we can, do about it. I'm happy, and I'm happy, to be here on this committee and to help as many people as I can. And I thank you all for listening today.
Thank you very much, Nefa-Tari, because that's really very brave and extremely powerful, I think, to share your story. And you've touched on so many issues that are really important and things that I hope we can all, by working together, help to address for more women around the world. Has anyone from the audience got questions that they want to raise just now?
So thank you for your presentations. Nefa-Tari said us the importance to have the people around her among the diagnosis and the treatment. So, Nefa-Tari, one question. How Patients Association can improve the support at the time of diagnosis or treatment for a patient? So, for example, by webinar meeting, psychological support. What do you think?
Well, I think when, a patient is diagnosed, that's one of the things that should be addressed by, the team, the oncologist or social worker, someone, on the team, because that's really at the forefront, during diagnosis. Yes, you're thinking about your life. Am I going to survive this? But that ties into, the whole psychosocial and the emotional aspects of it. And then even, during survivorship, because a lot of us think, are we, is this going to come back? And then there are a lot of things that, happen, that we don't talk about, those psychosocial issues, or even intimacy, which is one of the things that I didn't mention. That can be, difficult as well. It all ties into the same thing, psychosocial issues.
Okay, thank you very much.